Hello everyone, today in this video we will be discussing about the previous year paper of DMS. The first question is, prove that for any propositions P, Q and R, the compound proposition is a tautology. Now tautology means when we get the truth values of this proposition, the truth values should all be 1. Okay, that's the tautology. We have to make the truth table first. We'll use P, Q and R, then P conditional Q, Q conditional R, then the AND of these both will be written here, then P conditional R. These are the things which we need for the final proposition. Then after writing this, we will write the final proposition here, and you can refer this truth table here. Okay, for P and Q, P conditional Q will be true always except this case. In this case, when P is 1 and Q is 0, the final answer will be 0. Okay, keeping this in mind, we'll fill the table. Okay, first we will start from writing 4 zeros and 4 ones. That's for the P, and for the Q 2 zeros and 2 ones. Then for R 0 1 alternatively. Then for P conditional Q and Q conditional R, we'll do by looking at this reference table. And after that, when we get the final equation here, okay, the final equation will be all ones. Moving on to 1b, we have to test the validity of the following argument. Okay, see, 3 statements are given and the fourth is a conclusion. So these 3 statements can be divided into 3 parts. See, if I study can be taken as a one sentence, and I will fail in the examination will be taken as a second sentence, and I watch TV in the evenings can be taken as a third sentence. Then after that we'll try to write the equations and simplify it. Okay, so the 3 sentences which we take here are P, Q and R. Then the given argument according to the statement we'll write here. P conditional not Q. For example, P is I study and not Q is I will not fail in the examination. So the first statement was, if I study I will not fail in the examination. So it's represented by P conditional not Q. Similarly the second and the third sentence. Then after that we have the conclusion which is R. Then what we have to do is we have to take the AND of all these 3 sentences and write it in a single statement here. Okay, and then we have to simplify this. Now firstly you need to know what is contrapositive. Okay, now see, contrapositive is nothing but if it's P conditional Q, then the contrapositive will be not Q conditional not P. Okay, these both are logically equivalent. Okay, now according to that, P is P here and Q is not Q. So in contrapositive, not Q will be not of not Q, right? So not of not Q conditional not P. We'll write that here, and similarly we'll do here also contrapositive, and this will be the same thing here. After doing that, we have to use the law of double negation here, which will be written as Q, and this is the same thing here. Rest all is same. Next what we are going to do is use the rule of syllogism for simplifying this here. Okay, by using this both we'll simplify it here, and then this and Q will be here only. Then by modus ponens rules we'll simplify this here as R. Okay, so the conclusion we got here as R, and that's what we needed to prove here. Okay, coming to the third question, 1c, the question given is 2 statements Px and Q of x and R of x also, and what we have to do is find the truth or falsity of the following statements. 4 statements are given, we have to find the truth or falsity of the statements, and we have been also given that U is the universe which contains only the integers 2 and 5. Okay, now let's see how to approach this question. Okay, so firstly we will write the universe set here which is 2 and 5. Then we have P of x here which was given in the question. We will simplify it and write it in this form, x minus 5 into x minus 2. So the roots are x is equal to 5 and x is equal to 2. This is the values of P of x where P of x is true. Okay, then we'll write here P of x is true for all x belongs to U. See, we got the solutions for x as x is equal to 5 and x is equal to 2, and U has the set 2 and 5, right? So P of x is true for all the values present in U. Similarly we'll do for Q of x also. Q of x is this, and we'll simplify it and write in this form. Then we obtain Q of x is true for x is equal to 3 and x is equal to minus 1. Okay, both of which are not in U, so Q of x is false for all the values of x belonging to U. Then the third statement given is R of x. r of x is less than 0, so there is no element in u which is negative, so r of x is also false for all the values of u. Okay, then the first question which was given to us is this one: for all x p of x conditional not r of x. Okay, so for all x p of x conditional not r of x. So this is the conditional statement. Okay, in the previous question I have shown you that in the conditional statement this statement will be false only if the value of this p is true and q is false. At that time only it will be false. So let's see where p is true and q is false. Okay, now instead of q we have not r of x. This will always be true. Okay, because p of x is true for all x belonging to u, so p of x is always true, so we'll have the 1 here. In this place we'll have just 1 here, and then we have this not r of x. See, r of x is false for all the statements, so not r of x will be true for all the statements. So the only possibility we have is 1 is to 1 conditional 1, which is true. So for all the cases of x, this statement is true. Okay, so p of x is true for all x belonging to u, and not r of x is also true for all x belonging to u. Similarly, the second question is for all x q of x conditional r of x is true. Okay, now see, what is q of x? It was false for all the statements, right? See, q of x is false for all the statements for all x belonging to u, so our LHS will always be 0 in this case, 0 conditional. Now r of x is also 0 in this case, right? And 0 conditional 0 is true. According to the truth table of conditional 0 is true. So the q conditional r is true for all x belonging to u. Okay, then we have this one. This is known as sum. Okay, this is for all x, this is sum x. For sum x q of x conditional r of x. So see, in this case if this sign comes, this is known as at least or for sum. In this what we have to do, we have to find at least one element which is true. Okay, means at least one x we have to find in which q of x conditional r of x is true. So we can take value 2 in the place of x. So what is q of 2? Q of 2 is false, right? So it will be 0, and r of 2 will also be false. So 0 conditional 0 will get, which is true. Okay, so this statement is true here. And the final one, which is for some x p of x conditional r of x is false. Okay, why it is false? See here, p of x is true for all the values, so we will get 2 here always. And here see, r of x is false for all the values, so we will get false here, 0. And 1 conditional 0 is false, right? So p of x is true for all the values and r of x is false for all the values. So there is no element in which we can get the true value for the conditional, so this statement is false here. Coming to the OR part, we have 2a here, which is prove that for any three propositions p, q and r, this is logically equivalent to this. Okay, so we will be using a truth table. See here, we will be using the truth table using p, q, r just as the previous one, and we will be writing all these values and what we need to prove, and then we will be continuing with the equation. See here, we had to prove that these two are logically equivalent. So after getting the truth values, we will compare each element here. Each truth value will be compared and seen if it is same. As you can see, all these truth values are same to these values. Okay, so these two statements are logically equivalent. Coming to B part of second question, we have to prove that the following are valid arguments. Okay, so we have been given with the two questions and we have to prove that the arguments are valid. Okay, so let's see how to prove that. Okay, so the first question is p conditional q conditional r and not q conditional not p and p, and the conclusion given is r. Okay, so first what's the step if the question is of this type? Firstly, we have to write all these three statements in the form of AND. Okay, so p and not q conditional not p and p conditional q conditional r. So after writing all of this, we will try to simplify and get r. Okay, so let's see. Firstly, we will use the contrapositive here and write it in this form, and then this will be the same thing here. By using modus ponens, you can simplify this further and write q here, and this will be written in this form. And then now here you need to pay a bit attention. See here, by modus ponens we got that p and p conditional q can be written as q. Okay, so q's value is 1, that's true, and this whole value should also be true. Okay, because it's an AND gate. So after knowing that these both values are true, we can further see from the question that p is also true, because p is also given in the question. P's value is also 1. So what we have is q is equal to 1 and p is equal to 1. Okay, since both p and q are 1, what we will do, see here, p is 1 here and q is 1. Okay, so if p and q both are 1 and the whole equation is finally 1, so this r should also be 1, because if r becomes 0, then one conditional 0 will become 0 and this one conditional 0 whole will become 0. So it can't happen. R should be 1. So therefore r is 1 and r is true. So the conclusion we get here is r. Okay, and this equation we got from the previous one here. Okay, the second part of the question is not p conditional biconditional. This is biconditional, not p conditional biconditional q and q conditional r and not r. The conclusion given is p. Okay, so first we will write the AND of these three statements, and then by modus tollens we will write this in the form of this. These both will be written in this form, and this will be same here. Then after that we will be expanding this biconditional using the conditional statements in this form. Okay, see, if it's p biconditional q, okay, that can be written as p conditional q and q conditional p. Okay, so in that way not p biconditional q can be written as not p conditional q and q conditional not p. Okay, then this and q will be written here as same. Then after that we will be taking this outside. We will be taking this outside and taking not q inside. Okay, because when we take not q inside, we will get the conjunctive simplification here. Okay, and this will be eliminated. Okay, by conjunctive simplification, if p and q are given to be true and p and q is true, then p is also true. So in that way, if these two statements are true, then this is also true. So we can eliminate one of these. Okay, that's by conjunctive simplification. So we are remaining with this, and in this we can write this p not p conditional q as not q conditional p by contrapositive, and we will be remaining with this, and by modus ponens we can write this equation as p. Okay, so we got the conclusion as p, and in the question we had to prove that the conclusion is p. Okay, coming to the C part, we have to give a direct proof, indirect proof, and proof by contradiction for the statement if n is an odd integer, then n plus 9 is an even integer. So in this question we will be taking two statements, this as p and this as q. So each of these we will be discussing how to do. Okay, the first one is direct proof. So for direct proof we will assume that n is an odd integer, then n can be represented as 2k plus 1. Odd integers can be represented as 2k plus 1. Okay, and we have to prove that n plus 9 is an even integer. So instead of n we are using the value which we got 2k plus 1 here, and then we obtain 2k plus 1 plus 9, that is 2k plus 10. So when we take 2 as common, we will be remaining with k plus 5, which can be written as k dash. Okay, so 2k dash is an even integer, so therefore n plus 9 is an even integer. Okay, that's the direct proof. The second one is indirect proof. The method for solving in indirect proof is we will take two statements, p as n is odd and q as n is even. So the given statement is p conditional q, and the conditional is equivalent to contrapositive. So not q conditional not p will be contrapositive of it. Now what we will be doing is we will be trying to prove this contrapositive statement not q is true, and we will be proving that not p is also true. So what is not q? N plus 9 is odd. Q is n plus 9 is even, so not q will be n plus 9 is odd. Then n plus 9 can be represented as 2k plus 1 since it's odd. Then n is equal to 2k dash. When we'll shift this 9 here, we'll get minus 9, which is 2k minus 8. So we can consider k minus 4 as k dash. So 2k dash, which gives that n is even. So therefore what we had considered first, n is odd. Now what we got here, n is even. Okay, so that means not p is true. So therefore not q conditional not p is true, and by that we can prove that p conditional q is also true. Okay, that's for the indirect proof. The third one is proof by contradiction. In this we will consider p as n is odd and q as n is even. Then the given statement will be p conditional q. Then what we will do is we will assume that p conditional q is false. That means p is true and q is false. We will assume that, and then since q is false, n plus 9 is odd. The given q is n plus 9 is even, and since q is false, we are assuming n plus 9 will be odd. Okay, since n plus 9 is odd, n plus 9 can be represented as 2k plus 1. Okay, so n is equal to 2k dash. So n is even here, but this contradicts the fact that n is odd. We had assumed that n is odd, right? But we proved here that n is even. So q is true. Since q is true, p is 0, p is 1, and q is also 1, which is true. Okay, so this is the proof by contradiction. Coming to module 2, the first question of 3a is regarding the mathematical induction. So let's see how to approach this question. See, there are 4 basic steps to write the statement using mathematical induction. The first is write p of n, which is what's given in the question. Okay, that you have to write. Then we'll solve for p of 1. So instead of n, we'll substitute as 1, and then we'll get the value of the RHS and LHS as same. Okay, that is for p of 1. Then we'll assume that p of k is true for all k belongs to z. Then we have to prove that for p of k plus 1. Now what is p of k? P of k is the same thing in the question what they have given. Instead of n, we will write k. Okay, then we will write the same equation for k plus 1. See here, instead of k, we will substitute as k plus 1 and write the whole equation. Here also we will substitute as k plus 1. Then see here, before k plus 1 we have the term still k, right? So instead of these terms, what we can substitute is this one, p of k. This is the same term here, and then k of 1 will be here only. After simplifying this, we will get k plus 1 common here in both of these, and then we will simplify it further to get the final answer as LHS and RHS same. Okay, so that proves that p of k plus 1 is true, which proves p of k is p of n is true for all n belongs to z. Okay. 3b, the question is determine the coefficient of xyz square in the expansion of this term. Okay, so we'll see how to approach this question. See, this is from the binomial theorem. Okay, the question is this term has the expansion from this term. Okay, so the general term in the expansion of any of these terms can be written as this 4. That power will be written here, and then n1, n2 and n3 are the 3. So 3 terms are here, 2x minus y and z. So for each of these terms we will be denoting a power here, 2x raised to n1, minus y raised to n2 and minus z raised to n3. After that we need to find the coefficient, right? That's what they have asked in the question. So, and the term given is xyz square. So what values of n1, n2 and n3 if we put, we will get xyz square. See here, for x it's the power 1, for y also it's the power 1, for z it is 2, right? So we will write n1 as 1, n2 as 1 and n3 as 2. Okay, and this same values we will substitute here also. Okay, separate the variable part and the coefficient part from this one, and this is nothing but this one can be represented as 4 factorial by 1 factorial, 1 factorial and 2 factorial. Okay, so this is the expansion of this, and from here we will get minus 2, and this one is the variable part, so the coefficient part is just this. The calculation of this will get will give the final answer here, which is minus 24. Okay, similarly for the second question also we have to do the same. See here, 7 is given, so we will write here first 7, and then 3 terms are there, 3x minus 2y and minus 4z, which are having powers n1, n2 and n3. So the term given is x square, y square and z cube. So n1 will be 2 because of this, and n2 will be 2 and n3 will be 3. All right, then after that we have to just substitute the values. After putting the values of n1, n2 and n3 here, we will separate the coefficient part and the variable part, and we will calculate this value. Okay, so the value when we calculate, we will get the final answer. Okay, this is the final answer. Question 3c is, a woman has 11 close relatives and she wishes to invite 5 of them to dinner. In how many ways can she invite them in the following situations? So a woman has 11 relatives, among which she has to invite 5 of them. Okay, so from 11, 5 are getting invited. Okay, that's what we understood till now. Then the 3 cases are given, and we will be discussing each of these cases separately. The first case is there is no restriction on the choice, so we will just use the normal formula to calculate the number of ways. The second question is, 2 particular persons will not attend separately. Okay, suppose that the 2 persons are A and B, they will not attend separately. Okay, if they are called, they will attend together. If they are not called, both will not come. Okay, so there are 2 options, either both will come or both will not come. Actually here it is, if A and B both are not invited. Okay, so if both are invited, then 2 persons are sure to come. So from 11, 2 persons are coming, so the total number of persons left are 9. Okay, and we have the choices to invite. From 5 it's reduced to 3 now, so 9c 3 ways will be used to invite the rest persons, that is 84 ways. Similarly, if both A and B are not invited, okay, if both A and B are not invited, from 11 A and B won't come, so 9 number of people are there, in that we will choose 5 persons. Okay, so 9c 5 ways, that will get 126. Then the total number of ways will be 84 plus 126. Okay, the third part is, 2 particular persons will not attend together. Okay, so not attend together means they will attend separately. Okay, they will attend separately, they will not attend together, or they both might not attend at all. Okay, either they will attend separately or they will not attend at all. Okay, these are the 3 possible scenarios. So for each of these scenarios, if A is invited and B is not invited, then since B is not invited, 9c 4 ways. Similarly, if B is invited and A is not invited, then again 9c 4 ways. If both A and B are not invited, then 9c 5 ways. Okay, so while we add when we add all of these, we will get the final answer, which is 378. Coming to the OR part, we have 4a. Prove that every positive integer which is greater than 24 can be written as a sum of 5s and 7s. Okay, so there is a procedure for it. The question can be altered in some other way, like sum of 3s and 8s, like that, and n is greater than 12, but the procedure remains the same. So let's see how to approach this question. So this is a type of this question comes under the mathematical induction, and in this question first we have to write p of n, then we have to prove for p of 24, not p of 1. Okay, so 24 can be represented as 7 plus 7 and 5 plus 5. Okay, so p of 24 is true. Then we will write the same for p of k, and we will use r for the number of terms in 7 and 5, and then we have to prove for p of k plus 1. See, p of k can be represented as 7 r times 7 plus s times 5. Okay, then what is p of k plus 1? Then we will write here p of k, then we will write plus 1. Okay, that's p of k plus 1. Now here you need to observe. Now see, if I take here 7 and 7 2 times, okay, then this will be r minus 2. Okay, see here it was r, so when I took 2 times 7, r minus 2 will be the total number of terms. Now this 1 plus 7 plus 7 can be written as 15, and 15 can be written as 5 plus 5 plus 5. Then we can insert these 3 5s in this. When we insert this, s will become s plus 3. So s plus 3 terms are there here. So this again can be represented as 7, the sum of 7 and sum of 5s. Okay, so p of k plus 1 is true. Therefore p of n is true for all n greater than or equal to 24. Moving on to the second question 4b, we have been given a word Massasauga, and we have to find the number of permutations of the letters. Okay, and 2 cases are also given, we will be looking that as well. Okay, so first we will find the number of permutations. So for Massasauga we have 4 A's and 3 S and 1 M. Okay, So we'll write the number of total number of letters here, which is 10 factorial divided by how many letters are repeated, that many factorial. Okay, so that's the total number of permutations. In how many ways of these all four A's are together. Okay, so what we'll be doing is, it's very simple. We will consider 4 A's together as a single entity, which is X, and the remaining letters are M, S, 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 U, G. Okay, so total number of letters are 7, including X as a single letter. So then the total number of permutations will be 7 factorial by 3 factorial. 3 factorial because 3 S are repeated. Okay. Then the last question is, how many of them begin with S? See, firstly there are 10 letters in total. So the 10 letters, if they begin with S, then total remaining letters are 9, right? So 9 factorial divided by how many letters are getting repeated, that many factorials. Okay, that gives the final answer. The next question is, in how many ways can one distribute 8 identical balls into 4 distinct containers? Okay, so 4 containers are there and we have to distribute 8 identical balls, so that 2 questions are given, which is no container is left empty and 4th container gets an odd number of balls. Okay, so no container is left empty means initially we will fill it with 4 balls. Okay, all these containers will fill with 4 balls, so we will be remaining with 4 balls. Okay, and these 4 balls are to be distributed among these 4 containers. There is a formula for it. Let's see what it is. So since 4 balls are remaining, the formula is C of n plus r minus 1 comma r. Okay, r is the number of balls and n is the number of places. So 4 containers and 4 balls will give r is equal to 4 and n is equal to 4, and calculating this we get C of 7 comma 4, which is the 7C4, and that answer is 35. The next part of the question is, if 4th container has to get an odd number of balls. Okay, see here 4 containers are there. So this 4th container has to get odd number of balls. So either it can get 1 ball or 3 balls or 5 balls or 7 balls. Okay, so 4 options are there. So suppose that in the first case, if we put 1 ball into the 4th container, then the remaining balls are 7. Okay, so 7 balls are to be distributed among the 3 containers. Okay, so using the formula, r is equal to 7 and n is equal to 3. Okay, similarly if the number of balls we put in the 4th container is 3, then the total number of balls will be 8 minus 3, which is 5 balls remaining to be distributed in 3 containers. So the formula will be 3 plus 5 minus 1 comma 5. So C of 7 comma 5. Similarly we will do for 5 balls and 7 balls. Then the sum will give the total number of ways. Okay, the 4 conditions, the sum will give the total number of ways. Okay, moving on with the module 3, we have the first question, which is, for any non-empty sets A, B and C, prove that A cross B union C is equal to A cross B union A cross C. Okay, and the second question is also a similar type. Let's see one by one. So see, there are 2 sets. Okay, this is set A and this is set B. Suppose this has some elements and this has some elements. Okay, so X belongs to A and Y belongs to B. Okay, so when we cross it, we'll get the each combination here. Okay, so X comma Y will be belonging to A cross B. So in the same way we have, suppose that X comma Y belongs to A cross B union C, then X belongs to A and Y belongs to B union C. Okay, union means or. Okay, intersection means and. So we can write as Y belongs to B or Y belongs to C. Then further separating it by using distributive rule, we will get X belongs to A and Y belongs to B, or X belongs to A and Y belongs to C. Then we can write this as X comma Y belonging to A cross B or X comma Y belonging to A cross C. Okay, so then further simplifying it, we will get as X comma Y belongs to A cross B, or can be written as union A cross C. Okay, this A cross C from here, and that's what we need to prove. A cross B union C is equal to A cross B union A cross C. Similarly we have the second question, A cross B minus C is equal to A cross B minus A cross C. So first let's see, we will consider X comma Y belonging to A cross B minus C. Okay, so then X belongs to A, Y belongs to B minus C. Okay, X belongs to A and Y belongs to B minus C. then x belongs to A, and here y belongs to B and y does not belong to C. See, what does B minus C mean? If any element belongs to B minus C, that means it should belong to B and it should not be belonging to C. Okay, B minus C gives that value. So we will get y belonging to B and y not belonging to C. Then by using the distributive rule, we will take this together and this two together. Okay, so we will get x belonging to A and y belonging to B, and x belonging to A and y not belonging to C. Then we will write it as in this way: x comma y belonging to A cross B and x comma y not belonging to A cross C. Okay, because this is not belonging to. So then we will simplify it and write x comma y belonging to A cross B from this one minus A cross C. Since it's not belonging, we can use this minus sign here. Okay, so finally we will get this equation which we needed to prove. A cross B minus C is equal to A cross B minus A cross C.